So guys, welcome on Twitch everyone. My name is Purple Disco Machine, and first of all thanks to the Defected for setting this live stream up, and of course for giving me the opportunity to remix the amazing song from Boys Noise, All I Want. And so which was an honor to do another remix for you guys Defected. So thanks yeah for this. Yes, so when I start working on a remix, the approach is a bit different to original songs. So as you know, I really love remixing songs. So since I started making music years ago, I remix songs from other people because it was a different impact, and I really loved it to work on ideas from other people, and it was really was inspiring me and my music, of course, to listen to stems from other projects to see okay how they did this, how they created bass lines and everything. And even for my working process, it was really gainful to remix songs from certain people. Um, Here on this one, this was actually a no-brainer as I got the remix request from Simon, and as he sent me the original song, I instantly loved it. This kind of 90s Chicago house vibe paired with Jake's voice was so unbelievably good. And what I really liked on this remix was that um, he didn't use many different elements. So it was pretty simple, pretty clear, and focused on a few simple elements like the voice from Jake and the bass line, and of course the drums. And for me, it was the question what kind of elements I wanted to have in my songs, and I instantly came up with the idea to try to recreate the vibe and the sound of the original, and make it more funky, more uh, more groovy, and to move this into a Purple Disco Machine song. That's why I used, of course, the bass line. I used, of course, Jake's voice, a few, a few FX, a few ARPs. You can just hear in the background, which we want to go through later on, and and I created a totally different groove. I added a bit more funky guitars, a bit more clavicins and stuff. Typical PDMs, PDM, yeah, elements to create this Purple Disco Machine sound. Yeah. So yeah, again, what an amazing original. So shout out to Alex for this amazing song. And so yeah, let's dive into the stems. First of all, as you can see, um, I really like working with different colors for different groups here, just to uh, to get an overview. And usually, I mean, for this project, I have 39, almost 40 stems. But usually, when I work on my own songs and original songs, especially on the last album, for those more yeah pop song or popish songs with a decent song structure, I my projects are more like 60, 70 stems. And to have an overview, I usually don't like to work with many groups. I just like, or I used to work since many years with colors, and that's why I still love to give my groups colors. So that means, as you can see here, for example, um, all the drums are green, bass lines are yellow, all the different instruments are usually blue, then guitars purple, because that's my favorite part of the song. And Vox got another color and effects. So it's kind of like I create my groups through the colors. So and it's much easier. So for me, I'm quite lazy sometimes. So for me, the most important thing is being quick in producing. So that's why I still, or since 15 years, I work with Cubase because it's the first DAW I experienced years ago, and I'm still in love with this. So because I created all the shortcuts I need to speed up my creativity and production process. So that's why I try to be quick as possible. One reason to do this is I get pretty quickly tired of my own songs. So my own songs bore me um, um, after 2 or 3 days. So I could never work on a 60 bar loop for 3 4 days in a row. I was just get so tired of listening again and again. So um, that's why yeah, I created all those shortcuts and the colors. When I start working on a song, what I also did here on this song, I usually start with the drums. That's why the drums are always the first 5 6 stems on my projects. For me, the drums is the most important thing because I need the groove to get the vibe and to get the flow. So I start with the drums and then the bass line, and drums and bass line together gives me um, gives me the groove I need to feel the song, to feel the vibe, to start jamming, to start thinking about what else I wanted to. Even when I arrange, I need the groove. I can chop and yeah, then copy paste and stuff like this. So that's why the first stems here in green are my drums. So let's go through the drums. What we have. Okay, let's start with the kick. Pretty simple kick. Snare. Then a sub kick. That's a sub kick I use in almost every song of mine since many years. It's more kind of a compression and yeah, I think it's a compression thing. If I want this bass line with a really sappy and wobbly bass, or more chopped and more like a this more like a stompy kick. So, but at the end, I always go with this one, and um, another reason is because like I mentioned before, I'm lazy, and I created over the last years. I recorded and created and collected so many percussions and snares and kicks. I chopped it from old disco records, and so I have a big collection of snares, kicks, hi-hats, percussions, and I play most of the percussions here in my studio, cowbells, and I had Showell, also a guy from Defected, so shout out to Showell, um, who recorded a bunch of percussion for my first album, Soulmatic, 2017. So I have those folders full of different vibes, percussions, rimbals, shakers, everything. And like I said, I record also a lot of shakers here in my studio, and cowbells as well. So I think cowbell is kind of like the kind of a signature sound for my song. So I'm trying to use cowbells because I love cowbells. I love this organic percussion vibe in my song. So that's why I'm trying to use the cowbells in almost every song. It became like a signature sound here, and of course here in this remix. So what else? Then I have a few layers of drum loops. Drum loops I created over the last years. Drum loops I sampled from disco classics, from funk songs, from yeah. This one. This one. Here on this one I just let me play it. Tries like this, and then I added one of my favorite plugins. It's the Shaper Box. It's a bit like a side chainer, but way but it's so easy to use this one because you just have to add this to the stem, and then it works like a side chain. So like this pumpy effect you want to have, or you have mostly in this kind of French house and disco house songs, when the kick comes, that everything gets side chained, and it's actually the same effect here. Again, this is try, and then with the effect here I just wanted to have this reverb, this really pumpy clap reverb, which works perfect together with the snare. And the head, I guess no effects on the head. Yeah. What else we have? On the kick we have just this filter. On the snare I think I used, it's a high pass just to kill the lows, because we like I say, we have this sub kick here, and otherwise it would become too muddy if I don't cut the lows here on the snare. So and I really like if the drums are clear and not too muddy. So what else? Head and percussion. So, and I mean this, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stems, and you already have this really groovy vibe. You can feel, and you can actually already start dance to and groove to. That's what I mean with I need this groove to get the vibe. Okay. What else? That is with the drums. Okay, let's move on with the bass line. The bass line was one of the key elements in the original song, and I absolutely love the sound of the bass line. That's why I try to keep the vibe and keep the sound, and I used the same bass line. I just chopped it, and as you can see here, so the original bass line sounds like this. Perfect. And I chopped it, and now it sounds like this. So here as well, the shaper box to get this pumpy vibe. So here what I did is it's like the mix without, you can go to 100% and together. So good. I just love it. The only problem, the sound was amazing. The only problem I had here with the bass line is I missed the sub bass. That's why I added sub bass, which plays actually the same notes. It's this one here, and I used I think it's a sub boom bass. Yeah, it's this one, sub boom bass. So like I said, the same notes, just to support the bass line and the bounced stems here. And you have this wobbly sub bass we need. So that's why another important thing for me is to find the right balance of kick and bass line. I think it's for every producer, for every producer in electronic music, it's the hardest thing to find the balance between the kick and the bass, that everything sounds balanced and it's not the kick is too stompy and you don't feel the bass, or you just have the wobbly bass and no kick. I mean, we actually on the club, on the dance floors, we need the kick to get the rhythm and the groove and the vibe. So and to find the balance of both is for me is one of the most important things. That's why I decided here to add a sub bass. Let me show what kind of effects I use. Okay, on almost every bass line, is it a guitar bass, a synth bass, a Moog, or whatever, I'm going to use this one. It's from Waves. It's the CLA bundle, and for me it's a perfect tool for bass lines, because it's one plug-in which adds everything I want, everything I need in the bass. So I can compress, I can add some compression, I can add a bit sub, this will be too much, bit sub and distortion, and I could even make it a bit wider, add like a chorus or something like this. So, but here, so this is try, and that's it. I really like this kind of really crackly distortion noise. And all together. So let's go down to, this is a little effect I added here on this song. I think it's also from Alex, from the original song, and yeah, it's a bit like an ARP effect I wanted to have here, just to fill the little gaps between the bass line. So let's move on with Jake's voice. Same here on the on Jake's voice. It's from the same Waves bundle from CLA, from yeah, but it's this time. Why I used the bass one? Give it to me. I know here. Give it to me. So it would be a CLA and vocals. So this is a plug-in I use quite a lot. It's from the same CLA bundle and from Waves. And I use it for almost every vocals or every song where I have vocals. Give it to me. Yeah, basically when I get the tri stems, the first thing I add is this one. Give it to me. To add compression, a bit mids, reverb, a small delay,
Give it to me.
and the chorus vibe. But here I haven't used it because, or I didn't use it
Give it
because
to me.
I used the wet stems, so because they were perfect, they were on point, and there was nothing to add. So that's why I I was working with the wet stems here. As you can hear,
Give it to me.
it sounds good. He's having a really short delay, which makes this kind of short room and gives this wide stereo effect I absolutely like. And especially another thing I try I want to mention when I start working on a song. I sometimes I close my eyes and then I imagine I'm staying in a 3D room, and then I have to place all the single instruments and drums in a room. So to avoid that everything just yeah sounds like a really mono song, so which is quite muddy. So I'm trying to make the room as big as possible. So and if you close your eyes and just listen to the voice, you can hear
Give it
it's
to
left
me.
and right, such a big room, and there's so much space in the middle, enough space for the bass line. Usually the drums are in the middle and mostly the bass lines, and then I'm trying to place um, instruments like pianos or guitars on the left or on the right side, just to give every instrument their room or their place to shine. All together, it's like the bass line is in the middle.
Give it to me.
Okay, then so here the next element which comes in is this ARP. I think I made it with a Novation Bass Station 2, which is, in my opinion, one of the best, yeah, synths, external or synths, hardware synths I have, and I use this quite. I use this one quite a lot. So it's so easy to plug. Even if you just want to work with the presets, you have so many different ways to create an amazing bass line. And I'm also using this bass station for ups, and that's what I did here. Then I added a few effects, same high pass, and another amazing plugin. It's the God Phaser to get this typical funky French house sound. I think Phaser is also is anyway one of my favorite FX to add in a song. A phaser brings always this kind of 80s or even this kind of French house vibe to a song. Okay, what else? Shaper box again, and Mondo mode. Mondo mode is a nice tool. It's like the ARP works from right to left, from left to right, just to to give this song more dynamic and to. I mean, it's not that you actually not realize that the ARP as a key element in the song, but it's really important if you have something yeah, it gives a bit more dynamic. You can't say what it is, but it adds something. So then the keys. for my remix, I wanted to um, give the song a bit more song structure. That's why I added, or I created kind of a chorus in this song with different chords. Chords the original song um, um, don't have. So here on this particular chords, I used the, I think it was a Jupiter 8. Yeah. So I used the Jupiter 8 for this one, and it's just you have those chords to introduce the chorus. Yeah, and then straight into the chords. Again, here on the chords, the same like on the drums. I'm trying to work different layers to create a even bigger and brighter and wider sound. That's why I added to the Jupiter 8 a Rode. The Rode is Korg DW8000. I have also in my collection, and it's such an amazing sound. So this again. Here I added a chorus, which makes it wider and give more stereo sound to it. And it's one of the best chorus, I think one of the best ever. It's it's like a remake from the Juno 106 and Juno 6 chorus, which I actually have on my synths, but of course I'm lazy. I'm using the VST plugin, and the sound is quite similar, so it's pretty good. And yeah, here on this road, just perfect. No chorus. Chorus. Then filter. And again, high pass. And all together. Another important element on almost every song of mine is the high string. It gives this 70s, late 70s disco vibe, and adds a bit more dramatic, a bit more dramatic to the sound. Together with the box DJ. Here I filtered the bass line. It's the same bass line, it's the same loop like before, but I just added a filter, and my all-time favorite filter is from Fab Filter, the Simplion, because it's easy to use. You can adjust this and make this kind of sweep to find exactly the right filter position you want. Or you can also work with resonances. Like this. Just perfect. Okay. Then drop. But then it goes back into that really yeah, like I mentioned before, here, cowbell. I think it's a sound I recorded over the last years. Yeah, and then I just place it and chop it. Yeah, and then I was adding a delay. Yeah, same CLA. Unplugged this time, which adds a nice delay and reverb. Will be too much. Yeah, that's it. Simple. And here the cowbell plays the same like, or it's actually the same like the bass line, the same groove. So then we have this 80s brass. I think I made this one, I think also Jupiter 8, I just can't remember. Yes, let's try. And again the same plug-in. This time a really long reverb to give this element a bit more this 80s, mid 80s vibe.
That's right. That's right. All I need is you.
So what else we have? Another important element here is the guitar. In most of my songs I have guitars. So back in the days I used quite a lot samples from different sample packs, but in the last years I found a really great guy called Chitan from Berlin, and he recorded most of my guitar riffs over the last years. He played guitar on almost every song I released in the last 2 or 3 years. So, and I because of him I have now a big collection of guitar riffs, of funky guitars, wah-wah guitars, muted guitars, everything, and guitar riffs and samples I can use now, even in remixes, and that's what I did here. And the good thing is we record all the riffs 3-4 times in a row, and then I double it, and one goes to the left and one goes to the right. And if you do this, you have this amazing stereo effect, because he never plays the same notes in exactly the same time. So it's always layering. It's always layered. So that's why you have this amazing stereo effect.
That's right. All I need is you.
So another element I used from the original song from Alex is the steps. Here gives this kind of offbeat rhythm. Yeah. Love it. And this is also an ARP from the original song. Here I did something really cool. I added a flanger, and once you adjust, once you go up with the feedback maybe to 90 or 100%, you have this really wonky and weird effect. it. I just love it. Which adds another vibe and sound to the song. So as you can hear here in this part, the guitar starts to shine. So this is really important for me to have all the or every single instrument in a song should have his moment to shine. Should have this little yeah part in the song where I say, okay, this is the guitar riff, this is the bass line, this is the arp. That's why I'm trying to give every key element in a song his moment. Here in this particular song, I did it here. So here the chords again. This is the build-up. I mean, I'm a DJ since so many years, and when I work on songs, I produce songs from a DJ perspective. So songs I would play as a DJ, and I'm also arrange songs from a DJ perspective. That's why I really like those breaks where you can calm down a bit, let the guitar shine, let the vocals shine, the chords again, and then which introduce the drop and time for drum rolls, risers, and stuff like this. So I really like this parts, especially as a DJ. It's the moment where I can work with the crowd, work with the effects, and it's everyone is just waiting for the hands up moment, and yeah. So and here this build up. Sometimes this is exactly the moment when I need to road test my songs. If is the build up too long? Is it perfect? Is the break too long? Is the intro too long? Or that's a part in my production process I actually really need and really miss nowadays, because I mean it's one thing to produce the songs here in the studio, but I need to road test it. I need to see especially from the arrangement perspective, if a song is the song good or not. So if the build up is too long, and for here I think it's working, so I just trust my feelings. Let's skip. And back into the groove section. Here, snare, that's actually the whole build up risers. I think there's one riser here. And another one. That's more a noise. No. So as you can hear here, there's a new element which becomes his moment. It's this one. It's this arp with a weird flanger sound. The rest is actually quite simple, so it's just copy paste, and I think we went through all the important steps. Let me just check if I forgot something. So we had the kick, delay, percussion, bass line, stops, chorus on the road. Yes. On the master section, I don't mix and master my songs by myself, so I have someone from Hamburg, so shout out to Monte, and he is mixing all my songs since many years. I had actually another guy before called Sven, so those two guys were actually the guys behind my sound. And here on the production process, I usually on the master section I just add a little compressor which more or less compress just the drums and the bass and everything, just to get an idea how the sound will be after the mixing process and the mastering, of course. And then it adds, I just add and the Waves Ultra Maximizer, which makes it just a bit louder. And then another important tool for me, it's the analyzer. So yeah, the analyzer is also an important tool for me, just to see. I usually work with this one. Not sure you can see. Maybe I can show you. It's this one. It's the Clark Technic, an analyzer I use quite a lot, just to see the frequencies of the single elements here from the bass line, for example. The bass line is around 200, or it's having his peak around 200, 300, just to avoid peaks and to work a bit more on the EQ side of the song. That's why either I go with a analyzer here in the VST or with a Clark Technic there. Well, I think there's nothing else to add here on the production side. Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, now you guys were sending me a few questions I actually already printed, and I wanted to go through. So first of all, thanks for your interest. Thanks for your question. We just printed a few, and so yeah, let me start. What's the best way to get into music production? From I am Mr. Goo. Well, it's as I started 20 years ago. So I think 20 years ago it was a bit more complicated to get into music production because you had just I think two or three different DAWs and no actually no proper sample packs, nothing like this. So you had to create your own sound from the scratch, from the beginning. That's why as I started making music, I actually started with Fruity Loops, which was back in the days it was okay, but after a while I reached the limit, and so I was also working with a few analog synths, the Korg Electribe series and stuff like this, drum computers, then a few synths. I had a vocoder already, so I tried to was this kind of try and error process over years and to find my sound. But nowadays, I think it's much easier, especially with Ableton, for example. I mean, I never worked on Ableton on the production side, so I have no idea if it's good or not. But I heard from so many friends it's the perfect DAW to start making music because everything is drag and drop. You have so many sample packs like Slice or Sample Magic where you can just find the right. You just need the right key and then what kind of music you like. It's techno or house or I don't know, whatever. And then you just need to find the right instruments and the right samples and it's more like a puzzle and it makes things so much easier. But on the other hand, for me, it was really gainful to have all the years um, working on my machines just to yeah just to understand how a synthesizer works with all the oscillators and filters and frequencies and stuff like this. So to understand how a synthesizer works, you need to work on those. So a VST plugin, of course, can do more or less the same, but you will end up using the presets more and more. So that's what I realized, especially because, like I mentioned, I'm lazy. Of course, I start with presets just to I have the sound in mind, but usually I start with presets, and when I'm not sure with the sound, I'm start adjusting the sound using oscillators or, but yeah, I think Ableton would be the DAW for I would use when I start when I would start now, um, for sure. Yeah. So another question: how do you make your basses and guitars? Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, the bass line is one of my key key elements in the song. So um, the focus on in from the first moment when I start working on a song, the drums, the groove, of course, but then the bass line is the most important part. I think I spent the most time finding the right bass sound, finding the right groove for the bass line, and um, I got a lot of bass guitar riffs also from Chetan. I use and I use a lot of VST plugins. I think a VST plugin I can recommend is from Contact, the the Scarby bass. It's a bass I mostly use on my songs. Scarby bass, for example, I use the Scarby bass on In My Arms. I think on yeah on many other songs. Scarby bass, um, the bass or the J bass, just perfect. But also from Waves, I think it's called finger bass or something like this. Then um, the Trillion is having a lot of amazing bass sound. Trillion is it works on the wavetable synthesis, so you work with real recorded bass notes. You can um, just yeah play by yourself, which gives you the exact real bass guitar sound, even if you change notes or something like this. And so yeah, Trillion amazing, Contact. Scarby bass amazing. Or you, if you're lucky and you can bass, you can play bass, then yeah, of course, go with this. On the guitar side, it's the same. Sometimes I use samples from sample pack, but mostly the guitar samples from my friend and from my library. Um, yeah. So next question: what is your most important VST plugin? Um, that's actually a good question. So I really like the Arturia bundle. So I work a lot in most of my songs with the Arturia bundle. Even here, I I I think amazing plugins are the clavinet, of course, because I'm a big fan of the clavi sound, and I don't have a Hohner clavi here, so that's why I use this clavinet quite a lot from Arturia. Amazing sound. Another great plugin is the Solina. Amazing sound. It is plugged. Let me show you. No, that's not. Let me use this Solina. Yeah, that's what I actually forgot. So here in this song, actually I have the Solina here. Yeah, here it is. This such an amazing yeah, sequence. Sounds a bit like raindrops, and that's yeah what I said. This is this sound here. And once you play a chord, then it starts playing this really wonky and nice. I mean, it's not wonky. It's really lovely and harmonic and yeah, uplifting sound. Okay, yeah, this. So the Arturia plugin, highly recommended from my side. Okay, do you layer bass lines? Usually I don't layer bass lines, because if you try to layer bass lines, you get always this kind of muddy sound when you layer sub bass, and so you have to decide, especially because of the sub bass, you have to decide for one bass line. And I think it's also really important, or what I learned over the last years is if you have to EQ and an instrument too much, then it might be the wrong one. The perfect instrument for your song is the instrument you don't have to EQ, you don't have to use many effects to get the sound. It just fits perfect in your in the rest of your project or in your song. So that's what I learned. And if you start EQing, also with on the bass line, if you start EQing the bass line, and you have to use so many effects to make it sound like yeah, to make it sound like perfect, or that it matches to the rest of the song, it may be the wrong one. So just find the right synth, find the right bass line, which fits perfect to your song. That's what the only thing I can say here. So that's why I usually never lay a bass line here. It's a different thing because I was missing the sub bass and I wanted to keep the original vibe, but sorry, it's a dry air here in my studio. So yeah, again, how do you make music unique? And yeah, how do you make music unique? Yeah, it's usually I don't think too much about what kind of genre it is, what kind of music the radio play right now, and I think the only way to be unique is just follow your heart, just make the music the sound you like and you feel inside. That's what I usually do. Of course, my music is influenced by by other guys. Of course, are listening to music from other people just to um, to get the idea. Okay, I like, for example, when I listen to a disco song, I say, okay, I really like the clavier in this song. I want to have a clavier, not exactly the same clavier, but I just want to have this kind of vibe the clavier brings to this sound in my song as well. And then I'm trying to find either a clavier or a different sound just to get the same vibe. And but yeah, I'm usually, even if I start working on a totally different song, it ends up as a Purple Disco Machine song because I like the same elements, and I like yeah, I love to work with the same elements, with the same instruments again and again. So that's my signature sound, and that's what I want to produce. That's what makes me happy, and I think once I had this goosebump or dancing moment here in the studio, hopefully everyone else will have the same moment or the same feeling on the dance floors as well. So, but if I don't have this moment here in the studio when I work on a song, this moment when I start dancing or when I just smile, um, I usually never finish a song. So then I realize, okay, it's not the right thing, and the song ends up as a demo or go to the basket. Um, so but once I had this moment, I think, okay, I'm on the right way. It's the right direction, and I need to finish this song. And like I said, I don't care about genres, or if it's is it disco house, or if I don't know what it is. So it's hard. I, as so many people ask me, well, how I would describe my music, so I have no idea. So um, and I don't want that people compare my music with music from others. So I try to be unique, and to make my sound. And the best compliment I can get is that people, when people say, okay, after 15 seconds, I know this is a Purple Disco Machine song. So this makes me happy, because this shows me, okay, I have an ID. My sound is having an ID. So that's all. But I never focus it on my production. Okay. Over to the next question. How do you begin a track, bass or drums? So yeah, like I mentioned, I start with the drums and then with the bass. And once I have the perfect 16 bar loop of drums and bass lines, I start jamming on my synthesizers, or yeah, start working on the song, start arranging, start yeah, playing keys, and or listening to samples. That's what I do. But everything starts with the drums and the bass. So, what plugins do you use on your drum bass? Um, yeah, as you can see, actually nothing. So sometimes I just add, of course, the EQ, that the high cuts, and maybe, but just for the effects. I usually don't compress. I don't create a group or channel, and then I don't compress my drums, because that's part from for the mixing. If I send this project to my mixing engineer, I try to send this as dry as possible. Of course, with the delay and the reverb, I really like, but I usually don't compress anything, because he can do it anyway. And sometimes if it's too compressed, he's not flexible enough to adjust things, or to change the sound. So that's why I usually never compress my drum section. Um, from the CLA, what I mostly or sometimes use is this drums plugin. I use for reverbs, or maybe as a gate for snares or the clap. If I want to have, or what I sometimes do, if I add a reverb on a clap, and then I just gate it and then you have this kind of, I think it's called the Phil Collins effect, and this makes the snare really big and huge, and yeah, sometimes it fits to the song, sometimes the snare needs a bit smaller, a bit more in the background, not too aggressive. So that's the only thing I usually add on the drums section. Okay, what are your favorite free plugins? Are there any paid plugins you would highly recommend? Free plugins, I don't know. I mean, of course there are free plugins, but I have so many plugins here. So I mostly work with a fab filter for all every filters and everything. It's a fab filter. I work with a Waves plugin bundle. I think 80% of my plugins I use in my songs are from the Waves bundle, especially the Chris Lord um, package is so amazing. And what else? Another one I really like is the Wow. Oh no, I have it. I don't have it here. Um, yeah, what else I can say? The fab filter. Is it here the Wow? Yeah, this one is really cool. It makes like a, it's actually a filter, but with more dynamic, and you're more flexible to work on things. Let me just add this to the, for example, on the drum loop. So let's add the Wow, and then you have presets already. Really high resonances and sweepy sound. So this is a plugin I use a lot, which makes a lot of fun to play with. And sometimes you can get lost in this really wonky sound, but it's quite useful. Okay, how do you begin a remix drums? Okay, I mean, yeah, it's actually the same. So the approach is a bit different because you have the key elements already there. When I start working on a yeah, original song, um, usually I start from the scratch unless I use a sample and there's a sample already, but mostly I start from the scratch. So it's a totally different approach when I start working on a remix. But I like to create 8 to 16 bar grooves, and if I have a remix and there's the bass line and the vocals or the main chords are there, um, of course I loop this, and then again I start working with the drums and the bass line to get a 8 or 16 bar loop, to get an idea of the groove and the vibe, um, or usually when I listen to the original song before I agree to do the remix or not, I have the remix idea in mind, and then it takes 2 3 days that it works in my mind, and then when I start producing, I I definitely know what I'm gonna do. So I know how my remix should sound like. It's just a thing. That's why I need to be quick to transport the ideas into the DAWs. That's the thing. Yeah, but yeah, I like both. I like remixing songs and I like working on own songs. I could never decide for one. I could never say, okay, now I just produce own songs. I need remixing other songs. Okay, 2 more questions. Um, when you have an idea for a track in your head, where do you start? So yeah, it's actually the same what I said before. Um, Everything starts in my head, and it can be also quite annoying for my family because this is the moment when my body is there at home, but here I'm start thinking about my songs and I'm not really there, and it's I mean, because we are not multitasking, um, so it's hard to follow yeah, the conversations with my friends or my wife. So when I have this moment, and I can't avoid. So if it starts working in my head, I need to go to the studio and work on the song. Otherwise it will never stop, and I just go crazy, and and I can't stop it. So I can't say, okay, tomorrow 8 a.m. I'm back in the studio. Then I will start thinking about the song. It goes on even overnight. I wake up at night and then I start thinking again about the song and the remix. So that's why um, once I decided to do remix and I got the stamps, I need to start right now. I could never say, okay, um, I start in 2 weeks. So I would think all the time about, and it would drive me crazy. So I have to start, and yeah. So last question: what mixer do you use? Um, here to yeah, this is the mixer. It's an Allen and Heath Sear mixer. Here are all my analog synths plugged, so I can actually use all my analog synths. They are all plugged to this mixer, and this mixer is plugged to the DAV, so I can usually um, go and use every single synth. And all the synths are also MIDI plugged if I just want to use the sound of a of yeah of an synth of a synth. And so that's another reason, or for me it's also important because like I mentioned a couple of times, I need to be quick, and that's why everything is plugged. And here I use the Mackie Pro mixer with Motor Fader, which is for me the perfect tool for Steinberg Cubase. And yeah, that's it. But I mean, you actually don't need so many hardware to make a good sound. I know so many people who have working on a MacBook and headphones, and that's it. No hardware, nothing. So and they make amazing music. So it's just how creative you are, and what is in your head, in your mind. So um, yeah, you can also get lost if you have so many synths, so many um, VST plugins or FX plugins. You can get lost and you can waste so much time finding the right sound. Sometimes it's better to focus on a few synths, and so okay, I have those 10 presets or this 10 presets, and I have to make a song with this 10 presets, and maybe the result might be even better because you just focused on these 10, and then you find the best out of this 10 instead of find the best out of 5,000 different presets from 15 different analog synths. um, yeah, so that's what another thing, another advice I can give to everyone who starts making music: don't install a whole bunch of VST plugins. Start with one or two, then play around with this, and if you think, okay, now I spend a lot of time on those and I think I know how they work, install the next one. But don't go crazy and install 15 different VST plugins and 200 different FX. You will never use them. It just wastes your time. Yeah. Okay, guys. That's it. Thanks for joining. Thanks for having me defected. Thanks to Alex and Jake for this amazing song. Thanks to Simon for the opportunity to remix this song. And did I forget someone? No. Everyone, thanks to my fans for your ongoing support, and hopefully we see us quite soon on the dance floors, and I just can't wait to play in front of real people. So I'm pretty sure we see us, and yeah, take care. Cheers. Bye.